And we will first, I'm calling this meeting to order. And we will go to the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sandy, you ready? You guys got to come up here. You and Daphne or
Sit at
whoever.
the table.
Yep. We'll bring up another chair. So you two. Who was sitting next to you?
Kimmy.
Oh,
Good evening.
what page you want us on?
77.
77. Like as we did last time, you have any introduction? Proceed.
Sure. So Kimmy is temporarily missing, so I was hoping she would be here. But this is a Parks and Recreation Program Event Fund. Starts on page 77. And it walks you through the various things that Parks and Recreation does. Granby is unique in that virtually there is little money in the general fund budget that supports the delivery of Parks and Rec services. So what you have here is a self-balancing fund. Starting on page 77, the revenue that we take in is $939,535. On page 78, it shows you basically the payroll and the temporary payroll, which is position detail on page 79. That's $275,306 for the full-timers and $195,000 for the part-timers. Kimmy, I was just explaining to the folks that the budget for Parks and Recreation really begins on page 77 with revenue, page 78 for expenses, page 79 for the detail. And I'll turn it over to Sandy, who can tell you a little bit about how that revenue is derived and how those programs are put together.
Thank you very much. So if we're going to look at the items in the book, I think I'll go through and kind of give an explanation where you might see an increase versus a decrease. So for youth sports, under that account, what we did this past season is we removed travel basketball from our lineup. That's why you see a decrease there. They've opted to self-manage. So that is no longer part of our responsibility to manage that.
Sandy, I'm
Sports.
sorry, I was crunching on a chip. It moved where?
They're going to self-manage, much like the Rovers or Little League.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah. So that was a unique thing. That was the only kind of travel team that we were assisting with some of the administrative, but they have decided they're going to self-manage again. There's a slight increase in the youth sports clinics. We have added a couple of opportunities, one of which includes mountain biking, which is a new opportunity for Parks and Recreation. Under youth activities, you'll see a fairly good decrease there. We have decided to move out of the aftercare program. We have a very wonderful community partner in the YMCA. They are handling the aftercare program. They have made arrangements, so they have the bus system that works with them. So rather than be a competing entity, we decided to pass that over to the YMCA. That line item also included the preschool, Granby Nature Preschool. That has moved over to be a rental only. So we're not operating that as a program out of Granby Recreation. They are using the space and they're paying us rent to do so. Holcomb Farm revenue, in that you're going to see an increase. That is because Jamie has been very successful in filling all of the available slots for her events. So she's already sold out a lot of the summer. There are very few dates left. She's also got full bookings for September of 2026 already. Those weekends are already sold out. So that's why you see an increase there. Salmon Brook Park. We've done a little bit of a realignment in Salmon Brook Park. We're really looking at, we had a preschool program. We are absorbing that into our camp director's duties instead of having a preschool camp director. And our Camp S'more, which is basically that extra week in between the end of camp, right before you start school. That program, we decided too many of our camp counselors are typically either high school or college age students. They're having to return, so it's harder to staff that. So it didn't make sense to continue with that program. Let's see, so that's kind of where we are with that. Did I hit everything?
Did we take away your opportunity to do your preliminary presentation? Do you want to go back to that?
Well, I can do that.
It's up to you.
Sure. This is the first time I've been in this format, so I didn't know the order. So what I did is, we are community services. We are senior services, social services, youth services, and also parks and recreation. I know in the budget book, especially because the Park and Rec Fund is a little bit different, it operates more outside of the general fund. But in this presentation, I treat it as more like one department. I will talk about each of the different segments, but as you can see, we're a team and we're working together. So that's the goal to move us forward.
Say, did you have anybody here?
Daphne's sitting behind you.
So behind me, Daphne Schinder
Yes.
from Parks and Recreation to support Sandy's portion of the Park and Rec program. So welcome.
Thanks, Daphne, for being here. So, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present the background of the great work this team does to earn the budget requests necessary to continue to provide the community with outstanding opportunities to engage in vital life-enhancing services. This is our team. As you can see, the top row is full-time. We have 7 full-time, that includes me. And we have our senior center manager. She is also our municipal agent and our veterans liaison. That's Jennifer Kilbasa. Vanessa Borelli is my administrative assistant. She also coordinates all of the transportation. Anne-Marie Cox is our youth counselor, supporting all of the youth services activities. Terry Zimnicki is our recreation program coordinator. She's very involved in a lot of the sports programs that we offer. Of course, Daphne Schinder is here. She is our recreation coordinator. And then we have Jamie Saba, who is our event specialist, who coordinates the events up at Holcomb Farm and our community events. Under that, we do have part-time employees. I won't go through all of those, but it includes our van drivers, we have clinicians, we have our event monitors, our seasonal camp staff. We have 15 year-round part-time staff, and seasonal camp staff is about 35 additional personnel that we bring in. So for social services, we are charged with meeting the basic needs of our residents. And then for youth and senior services, we provide engaging developmental initiatives throughout the lifespan. And through Parks and Recreation, we offer ongoing well-being through our community connections and opportunities to participate. Get on the bus, come join us. So what's cooking? What have we been doing so far this fiscal year? I thought that I would fill you in on the number of programs that we have so far since January 1st run. In Parks and Recreation, we've run 381 programs, and we have had 3,957 registrations for the programs. At the Senior Center, our total Senior Center membership is 771 persons. We have run 1,004 programs since July 1st. Our total participation, number of people who have attended those programs, 10,654. We have a total of 114 van riders, register riders for our transportation program, and the total number of rides that we have assigned and completed since July 1, 2,091 rides, just to give you an idea. I did have Daphne, I'm going to do this anyway, it's a little hokey, but I asked Daphne if she would give me a listing of all of the programs that they have done so far this year. And this is it, it's single space, 12-point font. These are all the programs that they have done. Wow. Just to give you an example. So we have also, in this fiscal year, we have completed the renovation for the senior center kitchen. So that's a picture of the newly done kitchen. We replaced the floors. We replaced, and now we have a real 3-bay sink system, a real dishwasher. We also have convection ovens, new ceiling tiles, fresh paint. So it's definitely a much more viable kitchen. So we're very pleased with that. We replaced the Formica countertops with stainless steel there. That was all put together through a STEEP grant and some additional grant funding that we were able to secure. And we also took possession of our 2023 Chevy 14-passenger lift-equipped vehicle. That's a 14-passenger vehicle. That was part of the capital purchase. We are almost complete with our walking path down at Salmon Brook Park through STEEP and ARPA grant funding. I gave you a little bit of an update because when I put the slide together, we only had 602 events. So it lists some of the events that we've offered there. Summer camp was sold out, and we've had a lot of community events. So some of the things that we're working on is we're going through and we're reviewing and updating our department policies and procedure, just to bring those up to speed. Some of them haven't been looked at for a little while, so we are engaging with our boards and commissions to get some assistance from them. Thank you very much. At a recent Board of Selectmen meeting, you did approve the CLEAR program initiative, so thank you very much for that. Now it's time to get down and get that implemented. The Senior Center will be celebrating 25 years next year, 2026. That building was put up in 2001. We have done a very nice job with things like doing the Senior Center renovation, about keeping things up to date and fresh, but there's still some things in there. The furniture in that building is now 25 years old, so we need to start looking at doing some improvements there. Storage is an issue for, I think, townwide, really. Very little space. We don't got the closets. We need some more closets to store some equipment. So we're looking at ways that we can do that. We're looking to enhance our walking path experience. We've already looked at adding some additional, let's just call them dog stations, to make sure that we're keeping our park clean. We're going to look at putting up our sunscreen stations again. Holding a couple of additional events is what we're planning to do. We're going to incorporate our walking path in our next Easter experience. We're also going to look at, like I said, we're one big happy family now, so we'd like to kind of look at our branding and see how we can perhaps combine some of our current logos and materials so that we look like a united department. Wasn't sure where to put this, actually. So when we talked about new initiatives, these were some of the things that cropped up when I was talking with the staff at Salmon Brook Park, at Parks and Recreation. Last summer, we had a day where there was a microburst. It was during summer camp. We had, how many, roughly, kids?
140.
Yeah, so we had about 140 kids, and we lost power. We had to get them all in the building very rapidly. We didn't have any power, which meant that we lost all of the computers. We lost our phone system because the new phone system is now an online system, internet-based system, so we couldn't make phone calls. Staff, of course, is always thinking quickly and on their feet, so they were able to use their cell phones. But in a situation like that, when we had to squeeze 140 kids into that building, we didn't have the air handling going on, so it was interesting. I mean, it wasn't a long-lasting event, but I do think that a generator makes a lot of sense there. The same thing for the North Barn Pavilion. We have some wonderful events there. If you're in the middle of a wedding event and we lose power, that's not going to be a good thing. You're going to lose your lights, all of the safety equipment won't work. So these are more safety requests for the department. It's recommended that that pond gets dredged every 10 to 15 years, and I'm told that we're getting close to having that. We're at about that time frame. The rule signs at both Salmon Brook Park and Aaron's Park, the letters are peeling, it's unattractive, so those need to be replaced. And then we're looking at doing a digital display for Salmon Brook Park. With the addition of that walking path, we have seen an increase in usage. People are coming in, they're not exactly sure where to go, so it's going to be multifold, it's going to be directional, but we can also advise people of some of the events that are coming up for them. This doesn't mean that I'm looking to have these purchases come out of general or perhaps maybe make it to a capital fund. I can look for some grant funding and look to accessing some of the Park and Rec fund for those.
Those items are on the capital improvement plan, page 2.
Thank you.
They are items 2026-304, 5, 6, and 7. Actually, 305, 6, 7, and 8. I don't know why I didn't put the 10,000 in. I probably just assumed that GZA, who's doing our
Yeah.
park and recreation, would look at possibly signage and make one recommendation. So
Yeah.
4 of the 5 are there. The $10,000 is not.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question with that before I forget?
Sure.
Because it's one of my questions, so I had 2 questions. You answered the second. It's in this year's plan. Wouldn't have been in the plan that we started with last year, right?
Probably not. It's a product of a recommendation just this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do have it listed as fiscal year '26, but it is not recommended. I figured we would do that as a separate kind of CPAC, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance prioritization.
Okay. And the spreadsheet that's in our bigger book shows the 10,000 as an operating expense, but that's not shown in yours, actual expense, right?
In the Park and Rec fund?
This new initiative for discussions forum,
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
10,000 is in the operating.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I do not believe we added it to the operating. So that form is separate, and distinct from the capital in the operating.
Sorry to interrupt.
Any other questions?
Ready for questions?
Sure.
Let's go first.
Observation and a question. You might check with the provider of our internet. Some companies will provide a copper back to the old style phone for emergency purposes if you can justify it. I know we have a place in New Hampshire, and they did that for us because when we lose internet, we lose phone, and there's no wireless, so there's no cell phone service where we are. The other is an observation. The 2 new benches as you come in and go right or left are facing toward the driveway. You've heard this. I just thought.
There was a debate about that, right?
Okay.
There was definitely a debate about that, and I think the reason that they are facing
Toward the road.
towards the road is because it was part of the walking path project. And the idea was walkers are walking along and it kind of faced in the direction of
Yes.
the walking path as opposed to out to the park.
I'm out there a lot, but is it relatively easy to fix? Like, don't you just unbolt them, flip it around and rebuild
Well,
them?
you could, I just, I didn't know if there was a purpose to face them out as opposed to in toward the park.
Right.
Maybe we can turn one around and you can have,
Or maybe you don't
An
have
option.
to turn any, I didn't.
yeah.
I sat on one today and it felt just fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah, they feel very nice.
Yes.
Those were thanks to working with the Lions Club. The Lions Club. Did those dedication plaques get put on? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bill, I think long-term, we've had some discussions because we've actually had some individuals and groups express an interest in donating more benches. That ultimately we'll have enough benches through donations and stuff that we can have parking facing both ways, if that's what it is. Right? Is that fair?
That is correct.
Anything else? Peggy?
I was just wondering, on the temporary payroll budget, it shows an increase of 44%. I'm just wondering.
Is that on the senior center page?
Um,
I think it was.
Yes, community services.
So we have found that in order to remain competitive, we're having a really challenging time getting senior van drivers. So we need to make sure that we are competitive there. In addition, we do have licensed marriage and family therapists, and in order to keep them attracted to our space, we got to be competitive. Their rates of pay are anywhere between $35 to like $65 an hour. So we need to be at least on the front end of that to be competitive and to retain them.
Thank you.
I didn't know where you were going.
Anybody can jump in.
No, that's fine.
Jen.
Yeah, just one question. I know at one point we had talked about, do we do an allocation for DPW to the Park and Rec? Have you talked about that at all, Mike, or?
Yeah, so if, I'm looking on page 52 of the budget book, and I know, I'm just using that one, which is community services. Kimmy has,
52?
page 52 in the budget book, yes. You will see 8,770, which has been moved to the 244. Kimmy can talk a little bit more about that. 33,574, that's grant supported, and then 24,601 to the Park and Rec Fund. That's 20% of Sandy's pay. That's an example of how we're moving it around. That's not specific to Public Works. You'll see that in another area. I talked to Mike Guarco, and we may reconsider, we have done that in the past where we've recorded revenue, correct, Kimmy?
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about what we did last year? Are the amounts changing or just how we've presented them?
No, just how we presented in budget. So last year, we get the full amount, 100% of the expenditure in the department. But then at the same time, on the revenue side, you will see a line transfer from a specific fund, like Park and Rec Fund, sewer utility fund. Last year, there's only one line. It's transfer from sewer utility fund for the director of DPW and collector of revenue. A portion of the salary feeded from the sewer utility fund. So you increases the revenue, your 100% expenditure is in the department budget, so your net result is zero.
Right.
But this year, we do it differently. So we, as you can see the list, we capture the 100% on it, but then we actually take it out from the department expenditure. You see the negative sign, like 20% of
Yep.
the director's salary coming out from the Park and Rec. So if you subtract the director's salary, you only capture 80% of the salary in the department instead of the 100%, but we fee nothing in the
Okay.
revenue size.
Got it. Thank you.
So we directly book the 20% of the director's salary to the specific fund.
So the impact, I believe, is the same. The
It's an
mechanism
accounting-
is
yeah,
a
it's an
little
accounting
bit
thing.
different, and Kimmy and I and Mike can review that to be sure that we're consistent. We may want to move that back to the revenue side, but the impact of the budget is again, it's an accounting entry.
Is it?
And then to clarify, the 244, that's the senior citizen activity fund, the 259 is the youth service fund.
You have anything else? Bill?
No.
Mike?
Yeah, three questions. Just the Salmon Brook study and the Aaron study. What's the thinking in regards to any action that might come out of that monetary needs?
So let me start, and then Sandy will finish. She'll probably have a more current update than I. So we were under the gun with American Rescue Plan Act money. We had to obligate that by December 31st. Sometime in late summer, it became known that there were a handful of residents at the abutting property that were aggrieved by the noise from the pickleball court. There is a distinct click and clack, and it's quite frequent, unlike tennis. So they simply asked to shut it down. We weren't willing to do that because the courts, pre-existed, certainly the tennis courts. The retrofit is a little bit different. We probably do have some responsibility to them to give them a peace and harmony in their world, but they understand it doesn't have to happen overnight. So we're looking at some short-term fixes, meaning weather or noise dampening, whether it be panels that we fit or whatever the case may be. Probably looking at a $5,000 to a $10,000 to a $15,000 fix when it's all said and done, and Sandy can kind of clean this up. So we do have a responsibility to look at that. Meanwhile, because we're under the gun to spend some American Rescue Plan Act money, and we thought that when I got here, Ben, there was a request to put in about $750,000, which was virtually the entire balance of the Parks and Rec Fund, for a new playscape. Kirk and I looked at it and we said, well, there's some things we should do, but it's along the magnitude of bolt nuts and literally covering up nuts and bolts, adding some cushioning material in the event a child falls off the playscape. It was more along the lines of a $15,000 or $20,000 fix rather than pull it all out. So that's when we hit the pause button last year. Fast forwarding to this year, it made some sense to hire a Parks and Recreation firm to say, hey, listen, you've got a lot of activities going on, much to what Sandy said. Why don't you allow somebody to sit down with these groups? And also, we think Aaron's is underutilized. So where can we balance out, do even better with what we have at Salmon Brook Park? And also, is there a relief valve at Aaron's where we can put some opportunities over there? We know we have shortages of space. We know we have lacrosse there. We have football there. We have basketball there. We have tennis there. We have pickleball. We had approximately 50 people turn out and say our pickleball needs to be focused on as a forward-thinking thing. So I don't want to jump the gun on what recommendations there will be, but I hope in the short term we're able to mediate or somehow take away the noise to at least minimize it. Long term, where should we be making strategic investments in either the existing fields or pavilions? We repaved we added the walking path, but we also repaved the basketball courts. So is there an opportunity to take a look at that holistically? And if so, does pickleball pop out somewhere? Originally, some of the residents are like, put pickleball over at Aaron's. That would be a great place for a facility. So we don't have any preordained notions, but we do think there'll be some recommendations coming out of there with respect to short-term pickleball, long-term pickleball, and then it would go before the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance to decide if that's an appropriate, use and how much and how to fund it. A pickleball court could be anywhere from 100,000 to 500,000 for something really, top scale. This fund would support it either as a debt service item or as a whole in cost. But again, we want to see what the report comes out with. Sandy, what else am I missing? April 2nd?
April 1st?
April 1st, there's a public session?
That's right. So our consulting group is GZA, and they have been hard at work reviewing all of the plans, the utility plans, all of the logistics. They're looking at the wetlands, they're looking at the entire area for both Salmon Brook Park and Aaron's Park. So they've been working on doing those studies. They've been also contacting some of our stakeholders in the various leagues that we have that are the high-end users of the facilities so far, and that's going to result in our first public session on April 1st, where they're going to get some additional community input. So we're hoping to get a good turnout for that. That's going to help drive what our master plan will be to move forward. As these parks have been put in, we've been reacting to the needs of the community rather than coming up with a complete master plan, whether we have, a 2-year improvement plan, a 5-year, a 10-year. What do we want it to look like in the end? So
if I think of it from a budget perspective, it'd probably be in next year's budget more than this year's budget. Action that would come out. There might be little things, if you would,
Yeah.
that the selectmen, I would think, would deal with, but bigger items will be part of most likely next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious is, I noticed with the overall community, the park and rec side, it looks like revenue and expenses equal each other. Is that?
So that's intentional. So governmental accounting works on fund accounting. Fund accounting generally are a balance with a revenue section and an expenditure section. The reason we show it like it is one of my earlier comments, is Granby is extremely unique. Normally, a municipality funds as part of their general fund the cost of their recreation program. In Granby's case, the recreation program is basically self-supporting based on those revenue funds. So there is not a burden per se, other than a portion of Sandy's salary that comes out in taxpayer money. It is all basically funded by user fees.
I'm learning here, so bear with me. Is that
Me too.
a policy of the Board of Selectmen that the two have to equal? We won't put any kind of money into what we can raise for revenue?
I was on the Board of Selectmen at the time, and the question came forward, I can't remember what year, we'd like to establish a Park and Rec department. The answer was, we will give you a startup, but the Park and Rec program needs to fund itself. Personnel, activities, whatever. So it never became, in quotes, part of.
What Mike's saying is all those side funds,
Contribute to it?
yeah, they're all net zero between.
Yeah.
But like Parks and Rec draws 100, in this proposal, 120 something from the fund.
From general
Balance out.
fund, I think.
From the fund
Park and Rec Fund.
in the budget.
For FY '26 budget, if you look at page 77, if you look at the revenue side of it, there's a line called transfer in fund balance. That line is 73,000. So it's not zero, but like we're expecting to use of the fund balance about 73,835.
Okay, but I mean, from a providing the services, my question is more, are we tied to the revenue that we're able to raise? Is the level of services we can provide?
To say it a different way, the special revenue fund must balance, but if the town wanted to put a larger or a smaller contribution in to balance it, it could.
It could, right?
And that's a policy discussion.
Got it. Okay.
But Ben, one more thing, if you look at page 78,
Yeah,
unless I'm misunderstanding that, right there at the bottom right hand, see minus 36,000? What that's saying is if all of the things we predicted in these two budgets, we actually made $36,000 that we're going to contribute back to the park, right? Isn't that what that's showing?
The 36,000 actually is a payment to the capital fund. So, the 36,000 is actually FY '25 adopted budget.
Are we on, sorry, are we still on 77?
We are.
78.
77, 78.
78, excuse me.
Yep.
All right.
Is that the last one, the 36?
It's the change, yeah, so it's the
So is that,
25, the 36 is 25 adopted, so the projected
The 2 pages.
shouldn't have 36.
Oh, the projected is 26 because we're not going to use the $10,000.
Into,
What project we didn't use? Okay, look it up right here.
I don't see that.
But doesn't that come out of the balance of the
Yeah.
Park and Recs fund? The earnings of Park and Recs fund balance? Or does that come from the selectmen's budget? That 36,
The 36 is the Park and Rec Fund contribution to the capital fund. And in FY '26, they asked to purchase equipment for the Holcomb Farm for 26. And then 10,000 was used to do something about the playground and basketball, which we didn't use it because we used ARPA fund for it. That's why the projected line is only 26. So the 10,000 will go back to the Park and Rec Fund.
Got it.
But for the FY '26 number, we suggest nothing to go to the capital fund. That's why it's a negative 36, because the last column is the differences between the FY '25 adopted budget and the FY '26 proposed budget.
Yep.
I got it.
Yeah?
Okay.
so that 26 will come from interest earned on the Park and Rec fund, not from the selectmen's budget.
It's not the lemon budget, it's the Park and Rec Fund.
So that what I'm taking away is the amount of services we provide is funded, majority, if not all of it, through what is raised through the revenues.
That's right.
And if at any time we wanted to do more, then the selectmen have a right to always contribute more. Pull it out of the general fund or other places. Okay.
It's generally with two major exceptions. One is a portion of the director's salary, which is coming from the general fund. And the second is, we don't really account for it anywhere, but the cost of maintaining the grounds and the buildings is all in the public works budget. So when the general fund supports public works, it's supporting the maintenance of the buildings and the grounds at the park.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Maybe I'll ask about the grant-supported van drivers. Are we confident the grant's gonna?
No.
Okay.
So that, we have been very successful with that. The Connecticut Department of Transportation Rapid Response. In other towns, it's called Dial-A-Ride.
Yep.
We run and manage our own
Right.
senior transportation. We don't use an outside source for that. Those funds trickle down from the federal government. We've been successful with that grant since 2006. We've been receiving funds. It's more of an allocation.
Yep.
So there is a table. So in Granby is assigned what our allocation is, and we have been successful in using that allocation since 2006. I don't know what lies ahead. But those are federal dollars that trickle down to the states and then dispersed out.
Thank you.
So whether we meant to do it or not, I think we're covering the first two items all together. So we're working on Park and Rec and social and senior youth services. So I'm just going to ask the questions in the order that they appear in this book for me. So my first question's on page 51, which is the overall budget for community services. And I think you answered this, so the increase in the payroll temporary and part-time. So that's just increasing in salaries to try to be more competitive. It's no new positions.
That's correct.
Okay. Same page under the software application, if you look in the details of the book, it talks about the Schedule Plus software. Is that new?
So, let's see, how long have we been on Schedules Plus? Probably since about 2016, 17. We took a look, we had a database system, it was called My Senior Center. Wasn't satisfied with it. So we did a little shopping, and Schedules Plus was relatively new to the market, and that came in at half the price of My Senior Center, so we made the switch then. So
Is it working? I guess, but the bottom line
it
is.
definitely is, it is working, yes. I mean, the one thing that we are not really happy with is the way it generates reports is not great, but we do need a database that can handle tracking all of our programs and events, but more specifically, something that can handle the transportation piece, the scheduling of our transportation. One of the things that we did consider way back when we were looking at it is, can we get on the same system as Parks and Recreation to maybe do some cost savings? My rec does not offer the transportation scheduling, and that's a critical need for us. So,
So the software is helping you with transportation scheduling?
Absolutely,
and
yes.
With other scheduling at the senior center?
it does all of the room scheduling, it schedules,
Okay.
our social services appointments, I can track those, so yes.
Question on the generators. Kirk, don't we have a mobile generator?
We do. But that is also the backup for the school, and we don't have one in the library, so
Okay.
we have to go back.
Okay. All right. Can I move to page 78 then, I think with my last question? So the first number again is the payroll regular. That's again an indication of part of what's this year, but part of what we're making up for last year because the changes were made before we did last year's fiscal budget. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Organizational changes you're talking about.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right.
On the part-time increase, we do have to make sure that we're meeting the minimum wage requirements, so we did have to do some increases in the part-time.
Oh, so that first number, that 40,000, that's the total. Is some portion of that mandatory because minimum wage went up?
Yes.
How, do you know off the top of your head?
No, but maybe off the top of Daphne's.
It went up to 16.35 an hour. It was a 4.2% increase over the previous minimum wage.
So some of the $40,000 total increase is just getting what we have to do because minimum wage went up, and some of it is because in certain positions you want to go above what the minimum requirement is to be.
Especially for lifeguards,
Mhm.
as far as we're concerned. We lost guards last year because other places were offering.
Okay.
Mark, let me also point out something too with respect, so everybody's level set. With respect to the organizational changes pre-June 30th had the Parks and Recreation Director's salary completely in the general fund.
Right.
And the three individuals that are on page 79 were still there. When we made the changes after June 30th, and it was probably even a bit later than that, because by the time we reconciled with GMEA, you won't see any amount but 20% of Sandy's in the general fund. And you will see the raises that went about as we restructured the responsibilities will hit more directly in the Parks and Recreation Fund. So as an order of magnitude, the general fund got some relief from that, and the Parks and Recreation Fund added some more weight to that. And as the metrics move forward, we reserve the right to come back in a future year and say, hey, we tipped the balance a little bit too heavy in the Parks and Rec funds favor or against it. But just to let you know, that's the difference conceptually between last year and this year.
Okay. Thank you, good work. What do you got, Kevin, anything?
Yeah, actually, on that note, so the top line, the recreational supervisor,
What page are you on?
that's 79. I guess I was trying to match that up to the org chart. Who is that? I guess I thought that was the collapsed into Sandy's position. Is that not?
Yeah, we have Terry Zignicki and we have Daphne Schinder.
So I guess just so is Daphne the recreational supervisor?
Daphne is our
Terry.
recreation admin coordinator.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I was just trying to understand, like, I thought that was the collapsed position, but no.
No.
No, the collapse position was the director.
Director.
Yep.
Okay. And then I guess maybe just circling back to the question on some of the youth services and
What page?
preschool, 77. So I guess just also with that, just trying to understand that. So it looks like we stopped some of the programs in the youth services and preschool program, which has essentially a negative revenue part. And then I think to the part where we're matching expenses on the other side. Is this essentially the 128? Is that to cover that loss in revenue? The balance transfer?
So let me take the preschool program first, because that's a separate, distinct issue, and then Sandy can take some of the other activities, and then maybe Kimmy can talk about where the numbers are moving. The preschool program is Granby Nature's Preschool, which exists in the main barn at Holcomb Farms. It runs with between 8 and 18 children. It is an outside vendor. And for about 3 or 4 years, the town of Granby were partners in that daycare operation. That gave me great discomfort. We should not be partners in a preschool operation. You could look at, there's a town downstate that has considerable liability because they didn't do a thorough background check. We did not, in my opinion, we did not want the responsibility of taking a third of the revenue, which is the 48,000, based on these 8 to 18 children, and it's flexible. Sometimes there are more, sometimes there are less. No more than 18, no less than 8, but it's usually somewhere in the middle. So I worked to get the town out of a partnership and into simply renting the facility to the organization. We have insurance from them. We have background checks on their teachers that work with the children, and we basically have a hold harmless agreement. Instead of taking a third of their gross total, we simply take a rental of about $8,100 a year. That limits considerably our liability, but it also makes the books look very odd because we paid a bulk of that 48 out back to them in various ways. So it was almost inflated revenue compared to what we're doing now. That's separate and distinct from anything you may have changed on the, Kevin, did you say youth
Yeah, the
activities?
youth activities has.
So also,
numbers,
as I mentioned, the YMCA is, we defer to them to provide the aftercare program. So we no longer will have that.
Okay. But I guess with that, the 128 it doesn't totally kind of, I'm sure there's some other, I guess,
Yeah, so.
negative in there. So is that
That
covering that gap of that loss in revenue?
The 128 is the last number that I put in. So Sandy sent me all the revenue, all the expenditure. So if the expenditure is more than the revenue, so which means that the fund balance will have to support some of the expenditure. So that is just the differences between the expenditure and the revenue. If the revenue is more than the expenditure, the plug-in number will be at the expenditure size to contribute back to the fund balance. So that 126 is telling you that we do have to feed in that money from the fund balance to cover the
To cover the
FY.
salary.
FY '26 budget to cover every expenditure that listed on the page 78. But it's no in particular which line expenditure is just going to cover. In order to cover that page 78 expenditure, we will have to feed in 128 from the fund balance.
Okay.
Because we don't collect enough revenue to support all the expenditure on the page 78.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
I guess it does, but I guess I'm trying to, because it's jumping essentially 135%. So are we going to see that year over year now with the loss of the revenue of these programs?
Not necessarily, because as I mentioned, we are adding additional programming. So we might be getting out of the aftercare program, but we have other opportunities. For example, volleyball, we have self-defense, we have mountain biking, we have a variety of other programs that are being introduced that will generate some revenues.
It's also, your point is an excellent one. It's something we have to watch. It's not acceptable to go from 54 to 128, but we've made a number of changes. We've offloaded something to the YMCA. We've changed the configuration of the Granby preschool, and we've also, as I mentioned, loaded more salaries due to the reorganization. It may be, in fact, that the general fund has to take more of CND's salary to accommodate for it. But right now, that's the projection that we're doing before looking at the metrics and before making decisions to add more programs, subtract programs that aren't profitable, move salaries around. We're really just letting the three changes we mentioned settle so we can analyze it in the next year. But I would hope we do not come to you each and every year going, yep, it's another 128. Yeah, that's our goal.
Yeah, to me, it seems like that's just exasperating this particular year, because we lost isn't right. We made a strategic decision not to do the preschool and the aftercare all in 1 year. Those are two pretty big, significant revenue losses. So I'm confident that you're not only going to be watching it over this year, but that we understand that we can't draw that much every year from the fund. But I would expect that by the end of the year, that number will be less as they add programming and try to rebuild, transition from 1 year to the next.
Would it be any easier, I mean, given the questions that we've had tonight, and I'll say that some of the confusion that exists with the back and forth, is there any way we could create, in quotes, a separate book for Park and Recs so that it doesn't, I mean, right now it's acting, we look at it as a department of income and revenue of its own within the total budget system.
So the Park and Rec currently is its own fund. That's why you see the revenue and expenditure on the same page. So it's not really actually a department in the general fund. So
Right.
it is its own book.
So that we'd be seeing the same thing and possibly asking the same question because of the way the money has to go back and forth as a result of the audits?
No, because it's its own fund. So the revenue and the expenditure is captured within the fund. Because that's what was established when you created the Park and Rec.
Okay. Can we unestablish it and make it any easier?
That will be a discussions of the.
Let me take that one, Kimmy. Bill, I think what you're asking for, this is actually doing.
Okay.
The fact that we're sitting here around a table saying, we lost this program to the Bears, we restructured this, and we have a more draw, and there's more salaries, those are the exact metrics we wanted to hear. So the fact that we're talking about it, and I'm writing it down to remind myself, we have to watch it over the next year and come up with, it's either going to calm down and we're going to like it, or it's not going to calm down, meaning the numbers are going to be where they are. And we're going to come back and go, should we adjust fees? Should we jettison programs? So again, if I understand your question, you don't like the metrics in here, which I don't either. But they're showing us that we need to adjust course in certain areas. So I'm thinking it's doing what you're asking, unless I'm missing the question. But Mike's got his hand up, maybe he's,
Well, these two sheets, essentially, they're income statement versus, you want to look at also the balance sheet item of the checkbook, what happens with that. In this case, it shows you that it's drawn down in 28. If you look at the current year, the revenue is projected at 780 versus expenditure 990. So that's another 200 drop. So hopefully, between the two of them, I mean, that's a half, if not a third.
Yep, the year to June 30, 2024, 560K, 560K for the audited fund balance.
So you couldn't survive 2 years of that. Okay, okay.
Understood.
Because we're not pulling the money out of the general fund, it's coming out of this fund.
Comes from that fund.
Right, right.
Because the whole thing, like Bill said, when they set it up in 80s or late 70s, whatever it was, paid, the director was paid through the general fund budget. All activities were paid internally from their own internal revenues. And there's a lot of stuff going on here.
right, and to your point, Mike, this is the document we would use to correct the course.
Yeah, and also keep in mind the cost of to run the park and rec, because park and rec is based on hourly wages, which increases 3 to 4 times over the 2 years.
Yeah.
So the cost of the personnel significantly increased.
See, I look at it as the YMCA, Granby's YMCA. And it has its own income, its own expenses. The only thing it doesn't own are the facilities and the property. So the back and forth of the funds, if you will, that aren't coming out of anybody's pocket but recs, park and recs, only because those line item numbers are listed in your books, gets us involved, if you will, to looking at whether there is projected increased activity, revenue to cover that increased activity, and how do we pay for improvements of the facilities. Those are the only, to me, the separate items that are not a budget policy number, but an overview or the responsibility of some function of people keeping an eye on what's happening at Parks and Recs, unlike Public Works or the police department.
No, again, understood. I don't think their mission has changed or their challenges have changed. I think every year, even last year, we had a 54,000 feet from the Park and Rec Fund. I do think though, and I'm confident that that's the way it will work out. But again, it's being exasperated in these numbers in this particular year by two things. We dropped 2 significant revenue programs in the same year. And remember, we didn't fill the director's position, which was entirely covered by the general fund. Instead, we asked the remaining folks to take on more responsibilities in exchange for being paid more. Well, what we paid them all is all in here, where it used to be in the general fund.
And yes,
So that's what why I think you're seeing an anomaly in this one that we have to manage. We have to
Right.
figure it out. But that's why I think it looks the way it does this year.
I was just trying to think of a way to make it a little cleaner than it
Understood.
appears to be working right now.
Understood. Nope. Get it.
I think it's that damn board of selectmen back when you were on it. You gotta argue with.
That's right. You all came up with the fund idea. We're just trying to figure it out.
It's the way it should be.
It's
Any
like
other,
the football program.
No, take off that. All right, so any other questions around the table? Catherine, can you show me who's on Zoom?
No.
No one? All right. Did you have anything else?
I just would like to thank the staff. I think the coming together of the departments has been fairly smooth. I've been very impressed by the Park and Recreation team. It's been an honor to work with them. And I'm also very proud of the staff that I have at Human Services. They've really stepped up and helped out with a lot of the tasks that I used to be able to take care of.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a service to Granby, that's all I.
And thank you, Cindy. Let me reinforce that because you guys actually weren't here on our first budget workshop, but I want to repeat what I said then is the whole team, but a lot of this has fallen on your team and the Public Works team, which you're going to hear from next. We were able to get even where we are in this budget on the municipal side because of your guys' willing to look at restructuring and being part of a solution to that problem. And so, and it's easy for us to say, let's do it, and it's easy for us to congratulate you for doing it, but we understand how hard it actually is on a day-to-day and you couldn't have done it without the actual team that you have. They've been very, very good. So thank you all. Yep. All right, we'll move right on then to the libraries.
Thank you.
Libraries.
Right on that.
Is it just you, Amber? Are you gonna, do we need to bring, oh, okay. So we need to bring Judy up a chair?
You made it, Amber.
Mike Walsh, do you have any preliminary comments before we turn it to these ladies?
So we are on page 49 of the budget book. And in the budget workbook, we are on page 209. There's a little bit more detail in the budget workbook than there is in the budget book, but nonetheless, I will turn it over to Amber, and perhaps we'll start with Amber's PowerPoint.
For me. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to share the library budget with you. Up on the screen, you can see right now, we have the library lawn with one of our big events that we had last summer for our kickoff. But let's dig right into the PowerPoint. Go ahead and go to the next one. All right, so welcome to the library. This is the organization of how our library works. As you can see, I am up there as the Director of Library Services, and underneath me we have our full-time Children's and Teen Librarian, Michelle Kaminsky, our Assistant Library Director, Rhonda Gilbert, and our Branch Manager and Adult Program Coordinator, Holly Johnson. Those are the other full-time staff, and then we have lots of other part-time staff that really are the ones that make it all happen. But we have part-time staff up at COSIT, part-time staff in the Kids and Teen Room, teen area, and part-time staff in the adult area. And our mission at the library is to support intellectual freedom and the right of individuals to read, learn, and gather together in a safe, friendly, and welcoming environment. The library provides free access to diverse ideas, resources, and experiences, and strives to enhance the quality of life in our community by providing and encouraging lifelong learning through a variety of resources. And those friendly faces are some of our staff. Next slide, please. All right, so the library is very proud to be a part of the Granby community. And what we do is we serve the informational and recreational needs. We're very proud of the collection that we have, and we make sure that we always have the best and most wanted of things in our collection. We try to meet all of the interests and needs of the residents of Granby. We like to be a community resource center where residents of all ages can find information, materials, a variety of programs. We like to say we have something for everyone. And we always try to provide a safe and friendly atmosphere for studying, quiet, comfortable space for in-library reading, computer use, place for residents to exhibit and view collections of interest. Like I said, something for everyone. Go ahead to the next slide. So 2025 was a pretty busy year. We had lots of 2024, we had lots of fun things going on. As you know, we turned the FH Cossett Library into our new maker space, and we found that we had an increased use of that space of 170%. And that continues to grow and continues to just be a hopping place where everybody visits. We replaced the Cossett Library sidewalks. We have a brand new library event calendar registration system with also meeting room reservation system built into that. The library has brand new carpet, paint, lighting, and we're hopeful to be looking at a staff parking lot. And we have replaced all of our patron and staff computers using a PEG-PASHA grant. We've updated all of our staff performance evaluation tools and protocols, and we've even created a 4-year long-range strategic plan. We've completed a library space feasibility study, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in future slides. And we also have started a capital campaign feasibility study to determine if the community is in support of a potential library expansion project. Next slide, please. Some of these goals have actually already been accomplished, but these are the goals and objectives that we've been working on over the last year. Review and update all library policies that are more than 5 years old, and we have accomplished that. We have nothing now that's more than 2 years old. We have developed and implemented a refreshed annual review process to make sure all of our staff are receiving the training that they need and that they are always up to date on the most current things in the library. We have, that along goes with our refining our personnel procedures for library staff. We will be implementing a new library management system, and we will hopefully be doing phase 3 of the Cossett Restoration Project. We've been working with grants to help renew our Cossett Library that, as you know, is extremely old. We finished a project in the spring of 23 where we removed and replaced exterior areas that were disintegrating, and now it is weather safe, which is wonderful, but we still have some work to do. We have developed and implemented a homebound delivery service, so now everybody has access to library materials, even if they can't get to the library. That also includes new moms and or dads that are home with a newborn baby that they may not want to bring them out. So we have access to everything at the library for everyone. We've got our capital campaign phase. Actually, we have finished the first phase, and now we'll be going into our community analysis. We've organized and executed 2 Granby Children's Book Festivals now. Our last book festival had over 1,000 attendees with over 20 authors and illustrators. It was a huge success. We plan to increase awareness of library programs and resources within the community, as you may see in our strategic plan. And a big goal is to just enhance the overall patron experience by ensuring timely assistance and knowledgeable staff. Next slide. All right. So we have some future initiatives here and some requests. One of the big requests that you will see in this budget is to address the costs of the operating costs of the part-time wages. Our part-time staff currently is well below industry standard. They, if you look at the chart that is in the slide here, you'll see that Granby is well below all of our neighbors, and we are also below the median wages for our region in the state. So we would really like to help bring that up and ensure fair compensation for all of our employees and support long-term sustainability of our workforce. You know, we have found ourselves to kind of be a stepping stone for other places because it's a foot in the door, and then our neighbors are providing a little bit more. We also would like to add a person that could support 8 part-time hours of library programming. You'll see in the picture, we have a library program there that is jam-packed, and a big request of our community is to have more programming on Saturday, but unfortunately, we don't have enough staff to cover the children's room while a program like this is going on in another room. So we're hopeful that we can add a few more hours to make sure we can fit the needs of our people that are working during the week and would like to come to the library on the weekend. Next slide. And finally, another future initiative that we have is if you look at our strategic plan that we recently published, the number one goal of our strategic plan is to do a library expansion and renovation. We are working with a capital campaign consultant right now, and they are helping us determine if the community would be in support of this, how much we may be able to fundraise. And so just as it says, it would determine the necessity and interest in potential library expansion from within our community. We had an architect do a feasibility study, and this is the plan that they drew up for us based on Connecticut State Library Standards of Best Practice and also a space planning guide for libraries for the future 10 years. This would actually only bring us up to what we should be for today, but it would be the best thing for our patrons to be able to provide them with more program space and more room for a bigger collection. A meeting room space and a space for technology, a computer lab, and also a space where the Friends could store their materials. As you can see in this picture, this is our current children's room, and this is another program that we had, or we just had people visiting the library and they had nowhere to sit. They had to sit on the floor, and not many places for them to stay and be a part of the library. And last slide. Here's another program we have. You will see this is our small program room that we actually have, and put a few kids in there and it gets jam-packed. So we have to turn people away frequently. That's why we have a goal of hopefully giving them some more space. Any questions?
Start with you. This time.
I guess a question on the, I don't know whether it was a difference between, so like the slide in here said there was an increase in COSIT by 243%.
Oh, I edited from this one and I was going back on what I had in my head.
Oh,
Yes.
I don't know whether, yeah, this was newer or that, but I was just, I guess kind of.
This is newer. Oh, no.
Well, which is it? Is it a 190% increase or a 210%?
It was more, I guess, I was just kind of curious around that. I just saw two different numbers there.
300%.
Yeah. Just, I guess curious, because I think the last, and it might have been like a year or two ago, there, we had requested some, like, what is that foot traffic actually going on in COSIT? And
Yep.
there was, I guess there are actual tickers in the door that you track people coming in and out. I was just kind of curious on what that baseline was.
I do actually have the numbers back at my desk. I don't have them
Okay.
off the top of my head. But we used to get about 10 people a week, and now we're getting about 20, sometimes a day. So it has considerably increased. Before there would go days when nobody went, and now every single day there's patrons there. So I have the actual numbers, but not off the top of my head.
Oh,
But it's it's a huge increase.
And it is that mostly due to the makerspace, or are there still people going for like books and?
People do still stop by to the library upstairs, but the main draw is the makerspace.
Okay.
Yep, our equipment is booked all the time. We have classes there almost every day. People always sign up for training, so it's very popular.
I guess with the expansion, would the makerspace move, or would that cost remain?
Still undetermined.
Still, okay.
Yep.
And I just probably I'm more curious on this. If you could, I don't know if you can share the 5-year plan. I know in the past, it's been more, we've received from the Board of Finance, I would say, trickling requests for Cossett Library. And so one of my comments has been more trying to understand what the long-term plan is there. So great to see you guys have kind of built out that plan. But I kind of was curious around what expenses the town has for potentially the next 5 years, if any, because I know there's some matching funds with the grants there. So I don't know if you could share that, or
Sure.
send that to Mike, and Mike could send
Absolutely.
it on. That would be wonderful. And then I guess questions on the part-time employees. I think your slide said that increase of 8 hours and then also increased pay. Is it just the 8 hours for one person? Is that weekly, like that standard? Okay.
Yeah, I don't typically like to hire for less than 12 hours because there really is something to be said about being there frequently. You learn a lot faster and you get to know the tasks quickly. But this person would really be able to support programming, and 8 hours fit well within what we needed, so.
So is that an add to staff, or does that give more hours to the current staff?
It could go either way. It could depend on if current staff wanted to increase hours, but if not, it would be adding a staff person.
Okay.
It would most likely be adding another staff person.
Okay. And I guess, yeah, maybe that was the kind of question too around, you were saying that the drive that you're losing, essentially losing staff to other towns. So that has more to do with pay rate than available hours, or is it?
It has a little bit to do with both. Historically, the library has hired for, you'll see past postings were 4 to 12 hours a week. And that's a really difficult position to fill because people kind of want a set schedule. They want to know how many hours am I actually going to work. So my goal has been to keep it at the lowest amount would be 12 hours, and then even higher than that to get someone that is there, like I said, all of the time. And when they're there more frequently, they get to know everybody, they get to know the community better, and their tasks easier. If they're there 4 hours a week, once a week, it tends to take longer for them to become familiar with it. So historically, I don't love that practice, so I'm trying to change that. They typically will move on to full-time positions, so it's hard to, obviously get that, and also move on to areas that will pay them more. So that answers your
Yes, yeah, it was, I guess, just curious, like, are you really trying to solve an hours problem or a pay rate problem? It kind of sounds like a little bit of both.
A little bit of both, yep.
While we're on that topic, if I might, I'm looking at the position budget, which is on the page after, it's actually on page 50. And there's a lot of things going on there, and I just want to, and this is not unique to the library, it's unique to each individual position budget. So I just want to use the library as an example. So in this particular case, if you look at the top, those are the 4 full-time people. They are members of the GMEA union. And in some instances, the more senior employees are moving up by 3%, or in some cases 3.5%, depending on where the contract's settled. The less senior people are moving up a step and the 3 and the 3.5%. Generally, the increment between steps is about 4%. So if we had, since this is the first year out of the budget, or in the budget where we're putting a position budget, next year you'll see fiscal year 26 position budget and fiscal year 27. it will be easier to discern where this person came from, where did they go. Now, moving down to the bottom, there's a couple of things happening with the part-time library techs. Number one, minimum wage went up, just as we heard with Parks and Recreation. So that creates an increased cost for some of these people. And then for the people that we created compression with, they move up a little bit as well to continue to recognize their commitment and their time on the job. So a few things going on. And again, this time next year where we have a second column, you'll be able to see where they went to. Again, being the first year out of the budget or being the first year out of the gate, we were only putting the current year salary. This report will become more meaningful next year when you can really look line by line and see how positions are traveling, either up by steps or up by general wage increases or horizontally by steps. And in this case, the part-timers, it happens to be compression from minimum wage going up as well as scheduled 3% increases. So a lot going on there. It's not unique to the library, but keep that in mind anytime you see a position budget.
Okay. So some of my questions were just answered, but I just going back to page 49 and the regular payroll increase. So that's all contractual?
Yes.
Okay. And then on the part-time, I get why you're asking for it. So would, if you're successful, and now we have some new programming, would that be during the existing hours of operation of the library?
Yes.
Okay, so we wouldn't be adding okay. Would any part of that be part of the programming you do that's extra, you do it in the evening, you know?
It could be. It all depends. This person would essentially be a program assistant. So whenever we could have a program, they would be either covering the desk so that someone could do the program or be assisting someone hosting the program.
Okay. I think I only had one other question, which is, it's in the bigger detail book, but our pages aren't numbered, so just remind me, what is the library consortium membership? What is that? I asked it last year and I don't remember the answer. Yeah, get used to it. I'll ask it again next year if I'm sitting here.
So the library consortium is built up of 30-plus libraries in the state of Connecticut. We are part of the consortium, and it allows our Granby residents to visit any of those libraries, borrow from any of those libraries. Those libraries will actually send materials to our library, and they can pick them up right at the Granby Library. They can return them to any library. They can easily search the catalog of all 30-plus libraries. So it essentially extends our collection across 30 other communities, and Granby residents have access to it.
Is that a flat fee number? Is it?
It is not. It's based on population and collection, and it also based on how much goes out, how much we take in. There's a whole
Algorithm.
exactly.
Okay. That's all I have.
Yeah, I'm good. Does the library bring in revenue?
In the revenue section, there's a line item for $3,000. Kimmy and Amber might be able to explain how that's derived.
That's okay.
I kind of want to know.
Okay, fair enough.
Primarily, that comes from overdue. We don't charge a lot of overdue fines anymore. Pretty much overdue fines are gone. But if you do lose something, so if you lose a book, we ask that you replace it. That comes back in and goes right back to the general fund. Also, any kind of photocopying, faxing, any services like that.
In, you said, was it said that the administrators of the library are underneath the, is it Education Association Union?
No, different GMEA.
GMEA.
Different union.
DMBA.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. And also, one thing on the GMEA, Kimmy reminded everybody at the last budget hearing that by the time last year's budget went into effect, there was money in contingency for salaries. So what you're seeing in the case of in the full-timers is 2 years' worth of contractual increases, because they were in two separate places last year. Now they're in one place.
It was an expensive contract, it was like a 10% pop.
Yeah, no, but
Okay.
2 years worth.
All right.
Plus steps, so between the two, yeah.
Okay. In the 5-year plan, thanks for sharing that, that'd be great to see it. Is there some foreshadowing of what kind of expense might be needed to cover the 5-year plan, besides the capital improvement?
An expense for the 5-year plan or an
Yeah,
expense
just-
for?
Right, maybe you're thinking you want to open up a new program, and that'll happen in year 3, and in to do that, you might need additional resources to bring it online. Does the 5-year plan speak to any of that?
So currently, right now, the only thing that would come up within that 5-year plan would be if we wanted to continue to work with our capital campaign consultant. That may come with a fee along the way. If we decide to go that route, I'm not sure how that would go about. But the other thing would just be really primarily just thinking about how we can provide more space to the patrons.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
So I know the answer to this question because Amber was good enough to actually present the 5-year plan to the Board of Selectmen, I think, at our last meeting. It's not going to have the detail you guys look at. It's a 50,000 foot, here are our goals, and here's the 5 or 6 things we really want to pursue. It isn't translated into costs in any way, but it does give you an idea of kind of the direction that we're going to take. But we can get to you right away. And if you want to, you can go back and watch her presentation on that.
Would you mind if I hand this?
Did I say what?
Would you mind if I give a copy of this to everyone? This is our little library at a glance. It might help answer some questions.
Mike, I'm sorry, Ben, did you have
I'm all
a
done,
question?
thank you.
Mike?
No question.
Only question I have, are you still using volunteers in the library, or is that kind of something you still are?
No, yes,
And
we
about
have
how many
lots of
volunteers do you have?
Actually, COSIT has a lot of volunteers. I would say we probably use 12 regular volunteers up there as far as supporting people on learning equipment. We're also teaching classes. One of our great volunteers just taught a class on Tinkercad on Saturday. And then at the library, we have anywhere from 4 to 20 volunteers, especially when the high school students discover that they need to finish up their community service requirement. We have lots of volunteers. But
That's
we love
good.
it, so.
That's a good thing. The other question I had, that's not really specific to the budget, but as you think about the expansion, does that factor in parking?
It does, yes. Yep.
So can I piggyback on, if you guys haven't already codified the value of those volunteer hours, I think it would behoove you to kind of do that.
Sure. We actually have to do that for annual state report for the state library every year, so I can get you that information.
You assume that instead we had to pay minimum wage for those hours. It'd be neat to know what that number is.
Sure. I know it was over 300 hours last year.
Okay, when you math whizzes, what's that in your head? 300 hours times $15 an hour. Too much.
They said 1625?
1635.
1630.
So,
15.
4,900.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Bill?
There was a building committee 7, 8 years ago.
yeah,
Did the records from that committee still exist, do you know?
I do have all those records, yep.
That was my question. Thank you.
Yep.
You want us to set them aside for you to go through?
No, I would look for my minutes at home because I was on the committee is why. The only reason I remember.
Peggy?
On the special events, I know this is a fairly insignificant increase, but there is an increase. I'm just wondering what special events you anticipate coming up.
Well, I'm glad that you asked that. If you see this paper that I just passed out, if you flip it over at the very bottom, the little chart will show you what our current program expenditure is, and it is nothing. And if you look at other libraries in our area, you'll see that they all have dedicated amounts in their budget for programming. And so this is, what I would like to see is Granby be responsible for one or two major events at the library, whether it be our summer reading kickoff or even our finale or a winter, or help out with the Children's Book Festival. But just, I'm increasing it a little bit to have the support as a town-sponsored, a Granby-sponsored event at the library.
Thank you.
Where was that on here? What,
It's number 3.
Does that reflect, for example, I noticed East Granby's is the highest. Does that include programs that are charged for? Okay.
So, yeah, what this is showing is that these libraries, this is how much they're spending out of their operating budget on programming, whether it be story time or a magic show.
Not the activity level, but the expenditure
The
level.
expenditure,
Thank you.
yeah. And all, 100% of our
Oh,
programming
should've read
is
that.
provided by the Friends of the Library.
I should have read the line above, sir.
You'll also see the chart at the top, compared to other towns within our population. We are circulating a lot more materials than other libraries our size or other towns our size. And then below it, you will see we're spending a lot less on materials than our neighboring libraries as well. So we're circulating more, we're smaller, we're spending less, but people are still using the library. So
Does that include the digital?
that includes digital.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see on the
Drive it up.
front, there's 94,786 items were circulated this year, and that includes digital. And we have a return of investment at the library of over $10. So for every dollar the community contributes to the library, they're getting a $10 return on investment.
How does that calculate?
So actually, the state library has a return on investment calculator, and I have to go in and input every book that gets borrowed, every DVD that gets borrowed, and they each have an average amount. It adds it all up. A museum pass has an average amount. Using the computer, if you considered how much you would have to spend to have Wi-Fi at your home or to have to use Wi-Fi services at a hotel, we have all of that broken down into a average amount. Adds it all up and divides it by what our community pays and figure out we're worth over $2,700,000 in services and materials. Any other questions?
do you have anything written down?
No, I just wanted to highlight on that page that it was over 15,000 people that came to programs that are all provided by the Friends or GLA. But if you'd like to provide it, you could.
Yes, we had a big year.
Nice. Thank you, all of you members of the library board.
Yes.
I assume you're all here in support.
Thank
All right,
you.
if there's no other questions, we'll move on to Public Works. My favorite. Public Works. Good job, Amber. Thank you.
Thank you.
You got a chair.
Lisa. Up here.
Try not to. That's okay. I'll switch over here.
Yes. Well,
gotta stay next to me. That's right.
Should have to get back up.
Can't hear you. Oh, last call for sandwiches, the cookies must remain. Anybody else want sandwich?
Try to take them.
All right, hang tight. I'm gonna give everybody who wants an opportunity to grab a sandwich. All right? You actually heard what she said, or did she come over and tell you? No, I heard she said. It's time. I gotta get.
That
Gotta get
old
some
age,
accountability
Mark.
equipment, Because I can't do stuff.
It should make sense. The cookies up.
That's not a bad idea. Bill, just bring that box of cookies over here with you.
Bring the box, especially the ones without the M&Ms.
Catherine, nothing's changed. Do we have anybody on Zoom that's joined? Thank you.
I'm sorry? I think the PowerPoint first, correct?
It's up to you guys.
PowerPoint, please.
Mike, did you have any introductory comments or?
Yep. For those who may be following at home, we are on page 45 of the budget book. We'll cover 46 and 47 as well. And if those folks who are in the granular detail, the page number begins on page 189. You see some new faces up here, Stuart and Lisa. We recognize Kirk from last year. A lot has happened in terms of the reorganization of the Public Works Department, and I'll let them speak to what the changes have meant to the organization, and Kirk can start with the PowerPoint.
All right. So as you can see, I named my PowerPoint, Taking a Trip Through the Eyes of Granby DPW. Clever or not, that's a scene from Cider Mill. And so we'll go to the next page. And here you'll see the organizational chart, and it lists all the new positions created and goes down. You get the whole crew for grounds, roads, mechanic, facilities, and then we also have attendance, and you'll see it says 6, but understand, please, that they rotate. There's not 6 there every week. When we do Wednesdays, it's typically 1, and then on when it gets really busy, we'll do 3, but otherwise, 2 is the norm. And you see this next page, thanks. This has some similarity to last year, what I talked about, only I threw some pictures and a little more detail in there. We maintain about 100,000 square feet, and if you put that into your average house, that equates to about 40 average houses. And what we do is similar to what everybody has to do if you own a house. We're responsible for the heating, cooling, any type of window repairs, painting, and the list goes on, as us homeowners know. In '86, we were responsible for 8 public buildings, and now we're over 23, and that's an increase of about 188%. The town hall complex, you can see several activities day in and day out. This building, this room right here is busy. And then you also have activity rooms in the senior center and police department where we change them over for different meetings pretty frequently. Continuing on with the buildings, whether it be winter or summer, the buildings included, whether it be winter or summer, the buildings include those at the Salmon Brook Park, Holcomb Farm, they all need to be cleaned just like everything else, so that adds to the square footage. And you take DPW, I did a quick, that's about 18,000 square feet. So is it cleaned the same way? Yeah, we have office space, but we also have trucks coming in and out. They could be covered with snow, slush, whatever, or mud in the summer, so that needs to be followed up. And a lot of the guys chip in to do that, but we also have custodians come in and take care of the office area. And then we can't forget the remote areas like the Casa Library and the dog pound.
I don't think in today's day and age you call it a dog pound.
Animal control, I will change my slide. I apologize. Moving on to grounds. The town owns 134 properties for a total of 13, almost 1,400 acres. Some of these properties are so remote that even through the years I've been here, I learn about them, and they really catch me off guard. There's several, like I said here, that one way or another, these properties affect us because they border individual houses. And it was a few years ago, we had a spread of pine trees that were in danger of falling on someone's house. We had to wait for the ground to freeze, which it never did. So we had to put mats down just to get the trucks in there to down these trees, so we didn't end up with a big liability. In addition, we're taking care of tennis courts, basketball courts, playscape soccer, pickleball, and the list goes on. And then also are the 9 cemeteries that we have. Up to the right, you'll see a machine we have. It's a multi-purpose. It does aerating. It will put seed down. You can switch implements, snow blower, plow, and I believe there's a mower for it as well. And broom, thank you, Stuart. And there's, you'll see one of the pictures here, Sanderbrook Park, and I think that looks sharp. That's a big credit to what the guys do. Okay, continuing on with grounds. Throughout the years, I just mentioned aerating, fertilizing. We'll be firing up our irrigation systems pretty soon. I look forward to that. And then there's tree plantings, tree trimmings. They're done all through the winter months whenever we can get out there as well. So over these last 38 years, there's been an increase of 31% in ground maintenance areas. Bill, I remember listening to the superintendent when we found out we were getting Park and Rec. I do remember that. Anyway, so we had 13 properties that we maintain. Now we have 17. Staffing levels depend on the time of the year. The kids will be getting out of college. They'll be breaking away. We have 2 of the 3 coming back with a good possibility for another one. So that's good. Over the last few years, we've gotten great references. These kids work hard. They work with Chris Lesiak, and it's a good exercise program for sure. Going on to equipment maintenance. We have 2 full-time mechanics, and they're maintaining over 60 pieces of equipment. It's hard to put a real number to that, so I'm taking something of not just string trimmers. You have police cruisers, you have loaders, you have all sorts of stuff, but there's a ton of stuff. Any day, it can be anything. They could be fixing a broom handle for crying out loud. But anyway, over the last 38 years, again, there's been a 50% increase in the number of pieces. And quite honestly, I want to say thank you because our capital program has come a long way since I have been here. And you'll see some of the pictures as we get down the road. I'll talk a little bit about which may touch into the budget. Going through the last, I would say, 8 years, we've changed what we purchase for trucks. We buy stainless steel body and a higher tensile frame, and that is a way for us, I know we're not on capital, but to extend the life of a truck, because trucks are expensive, and the less maintenance you can do on them, the better off you are, because, like I said, it is an expense. Touch on some more of that. Going on to roads, Catherine? Like I said, I did this one before, but I had to bring it back. The DPW is responsible for over 94 miles of road. So given an example of that, that would be like driving from Granby to Albany. And Lisa went online and printed this out for me. Now that's going to Albany and back, okay? Granted, we have any given time, maybe 14 employees that we can segment it out. But nonetheless, we're 94 miles of lane road going 1 mile, not back and forth. And if you have a snowstorm on your particular route, you may travel that route back and forth 5-6 times. So you put on some miles and you get used to seeing what 94 miles looks like. In addition, we do have parking lots also. So next page, please. I had to throw in a couple pictures and looking back, and again, I know it's not part of this budget, but thank you for the capital, because if you look to the first picture to the left, that's what we used to have. And this in the center is now what we have. And if you're on K Street with the loader pushing back wind drifts, that'll show you what it's like in the picture down to the right.
Surprised you didn't show us horse-drawn plows.
Shovel, well, I was expecting a shovel, Kurt with the shovel when he
I
started.
heard the stories. Next, please, Catherine. Okay, here's some of our equipment again, and these are good pieces of equipment. They allow us to do a lot. We do all we can to not ship any work out. We have a paving box that's really been put back to work. You see that mini excavator? It's working quite often during the summer. And you can see the responsibilities that we're doing. We make every attempt to sweep 60 miles of curbed road. That's what we have. And the budget will touch on that. I'll show you a little bit more on that. And also all the street signs, whether it be stop, speed, directional, they're all on us. Basin cleaning, and we also do Christmas tree pickup. So again, over the last 38 years, we went from 75 to 94. That's a 25% increase. And also the basins went up. You know, we're up around 100, we're up around 1,400 now. And again, you'll see that in the budget paperwork. But that really takes us 3 years to clean. But we are staying within the MS4 guidelines. Next, please. We work with a lot of different departments, and this was a gentleman that got stuck on Mechanicsville Road. And we went, brought our equipment down there and helped the fire department out. So not only are we helping, working, assisting just about every group in this town, we're not afraid, and we go out and do everything we can to be a service provider for the fire department when available. So also, some of the miscellaneous inspections, maintaining of 18 bridges, 3 sewer pumping stations, 7.5 miles of sewer line, MS4 program, groundwater monitoring. We're doing pretty well on that. That's really something that stemmed around the transfer station from years ago. Household trash and recycling. Lisa, being the recycling coordinator, goes on several sites and looks and explores for ways to save, and also working with Paynes and now USA. We also have Household Hazardous Collection Day and Shredded Day. The Household Hazardous Waste, that's a group with us, Simsbury, Farmington, Avon, and I may miss one town, Suffield, East Granby sometimes. Anyway. Next, please. Our Department of Public Works crew, we sincerely are proud of the professional work we do and will continue to do everything we can to keep costs down and provide service for our residents. In addition to dealing with many challenges daily, whether it's a difficult winter or a rainy summer, which caused us a lot of challenges last year, in particular on Griffin and Moosehorn, I'm proud to say that the crew continues to do a great job. I would also like to thank the Lions Club for contributing, helping us out with the paper shredding day, and also the group that maintains the flowers and everything on the roundabout. And there are more volunteers out there chipping in various ways. And this, I was supposed to make my last slide saying my time is out, but I do have one more. This is just some more of the equipment, and you see to the left, there's a big milling progress. DPW, our shredded day. And for all those that are interested, May 17th, we'll be doing a public work awareness, shredding. Lisa's working to get more textiles down at DPW, and I'm pretty confident we're going to be able to do that. And then it also gives the future a chance to come there, and they can put their hand in paint and leave their mark on a plow. So it's a good event, anybody that's interested. And we can move on, or if you'd like some questions now, I'm glad to answer.
Is there anything in the detail of your budget highlight, or you just want to explore the question?
I'm comfortable either way. I can just go through a couple. Let's see in particular. All right, so there was a little bit of a salt scare recently. I held salt flat, okay? And I did, quite honestly, everything I did in this budget, I held as flat as I possibly could. We're gonna have to make some adjustments going into it. 37,000, give or take, we had for a number to paint all the lines in town. We're not gonna make it on that. We just got the pricing in. Bit of a sticker shock, it's around 43,000. But within that line item, we can make some adjustments. I'll certainly talk to Mr. Walsh about it. And maybe we're doing okay with trees right now, so maybe we can, like I said, make some adjustments within that. Basic cleaning, we should be pretty good. We're doing what we can to keep up with MS4. An effort, a collaborative effort with Board of Education. We saved some money on diesel fuel and gasoline and home heating oil. Electricity, we saved some money a few years ago, but ran into a little bit of a challenge. And again, just like we are at our house, shockingly, everything is taking a twist that caught us off guard a little bit. When I do go through the list, I used to do 5 years back, I've been doing 3 years back, and try and get a trend for materials, et cetera, and then evaluate it from there. And then typically when we look at DAS, CROG, or any of the bidding groups, they're about a 2%, but I'm not really seeing that trend now. We're getting some inconsistencies now. This held pretty darn tight.
Okay. Catherine, can you go to page 45 in the book? Maybe it's your turn to start.
Should have chosen my seat differently.
We'll go back.
Yeah. The first item is special pay. What is special pay?
That's just the category. And then So right here on top, you see. Good question.
I stumped you.
No.
I'm sorry.
No, because I don't have it to the left.
Yeah, this is the, based on the contract, it's probably,
Longevities, et cetera.
it's not longevity.
No.
Longevity should be under regular. Don't you have like, what triggers some of your special pay? I can-
Oh, like the Class A license, those kind of things, would that fall under that?
No.
No.
Okay.
Don't cut it.
Find out quick what it is, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen it in any of the other departments, so it just.
And I looked at it up above and I
PD
dropped
has
it down.
that line.
Do they?
The IBPO will have like a OIC pay, holiday, special holiday pay. Dispatcher will have like, it's based on the contract.
We'll look into the contract and get you the answer.
Okay, thank you. And staff training seems to have gone up significantly. Is there a reason for that?
There's more and more and more. I mean, we did OSHA, we have 5 or 6 heavy hitters that we need to do annually. OSHA 10 is just at its 10 hours, so you're losing the employee, and that could be $3,000 alone. And I want to give a thank you to the ambulance because they're actually going to do bloodborne pathogens for us and not charge us. Wish you didn't bring it up.
There's also, with respect to the reorganization, in the past, it was Kirk and a deputy. Now that the deputy has been eliminated and there are 4 additional staffers plus Stewart, you're training 5 people who heretofore weren't there. And as Kirk mentioned, there's things like bloodborne pathogens, confined space, there's OSHA-related stuff. Plus, we're also investing in, Stewart is the general supervisor. Sometimes we call it the supervisor of supervisors. So if we can get general training to Stewart, Kevin is roads, if we can get road-specific training to Kevin. And then Chris, he handles a whole bunch of grass-related, so there's a special set of training for the insecticides and the fertilizers and so forth. And then Robbie, he's mechanics, there's certifications required there. And then finally, Rich Toms, who's recently been promoted to it. He's new to the supervisory role, so sexual harassment training, although that is free, are all examples of getting the new workers up to speed.
And when we hire new employees, which we've done a few times, there's certain things they have to do that it's mandated as far as training, that the older employees don't have to.
Great, thank you. Bill, you're up.
You mentioned maintenance of harness way, snow plowing. Sandy?
No, we're not.
It said we're taking it on, I believe, something about it was that.
Yeah, you're taking, it's not a condominium association?
No, it's houses.
Okay.
The acceptance of Harness Way is currently making its way through Town Hall. Abby had a referral to Planning and Zoning to do an 824 hearing at the last meeting. We tabled it at the Board of Selectmen because there was questions about a couple of driveway cuts. So they are resolving that with the builder. And eventually, Planning and Zoning will, in all likelihood, return it back and say it's, consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development. The Board of Selectmen then will likely approve it. It has been built to town specifications, and once we officially accept it, Public Works will add it into their list of roads that they'll maintain.
The one question I had, and I've saw it in a couple of the other budgets, is it seems like we have a lot of different vendors that we use for cellular and data. Is there any benefit in having one? Like in here, you've got, Verizon, Cox, and Frontier. And it's not just you guys, I've seen it in a couple of other budgets.
We all do share Verizon, Cox, and
Frontier?
Frontier, yes, they still are in a couple of our locations. But we do share, I mean, the town buildings.
Yeah, no, I just didn't know if it made sense to go to one,
One vendor.
if you had one vendor for all, if there's any.
Some of it's phones, some of it's television, some of it's internet, so I don't.
Yeah,
Kelly, remember to ask that question when we do the IT budget?
that
Because
would,
Okay.
I do think long-term, there is some opportunities there that we might be able to take advantage of because of the upgrades we've made to the system, so.
Okay. That was it.
I don't remember the details, but remember to ask it, because this.
I won't be here, so
Oh,
you can ask for me.
I will ask it.
I wrote it down too. It's something we should look at.
When we extended the fiber optic network, so especially out in Park and Rec, there's some capacity to, we'll ask the question. Mike?
No questions. I was just gonna say, Kurt, you should have put Gertrude up there too.
yeah, it was a 1959 grader. And this is many years ago, 10 years ago, we use pre-treated material, okay? And I kept saying to everybody, keep some sand to the side, because I can remember when. We had all these ice challenges, we had to put sand down, and you go back to that piece of equipment, I can remember, we ran a grader down the road with teeth in it to break the ice. Really sounds old, doesn't it? But, you know, ice is a real biter, it comes back, it's expensive too.
Nothing here, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good too.
I just have a couple questions that weren't already asked. So on page 45, our electricity is up. But remind me, we bid that, right? So we got the best price we could get.
So, right, there's a couple of things going on. So the increase is, if you go back to prior years, we're coming, just the town, not the Board of Ed. The town is coming off of a very beneficial contract. And Kimmy, that was signed during COVID or just before COVID?
Before.
Just before COVID. It had an unbelievable price and it locked us in, I believe, through December of '24. Yeah, just this past year. We worked with the Capital Region Council of Governments and included the Board of Ed in the collective bid. 28 towns went out, or at least most of the 28 towns in the Croc region went out. We signed with BP on a 4-year contract. We hit the market very well, but when you compare it to where we were, it still represented a significant increase. So yes, we are collectively bidding. Yes, this includes the Board of Ed. Yes, we hit it during a good market time, but it is still up from where we were.
I think the BOE got like a 20,000 saving. They saved on their side.
Well, no, they were using market rates from Eversource. So
Oh, I got it.
they were, they came down from where they were, where we went up from where we were.
Because their old contract was not as good as our old.
It was market, it was with Eversource.
The contract expired, and we didn't get a new one until the bid
Right.
come in.
Okay. And then on page 46, again, this is probably one I asked last year. but I don't know the answer. What is the town school tipping fee? What is that?
Go ahead, Lisa.
It's the town dumpsters. So we pay Pains or USA to empty them weekly or monthly, and then also the school does the same, but we reimburse the school, the Board of Ed, for their tipping fees.
Okay. And I see we've achieved some savings there. Is that because we're producing less garbage or we got a
No.
better rate?
The schools can control their own, they make their own choices, and they seem to have gone down some dumpsters and just reorganized how it is.
Okay, and the Mid-Connecticut tipping fee is the total fee for all of the trash that Haynes picks up. That's the rest of the town, right?
Yeah, for the tipping per ton, 115 per ton.
So you could say it another way, the waste collection and the recycling collection go directly to Paynes. The Mid-Connecticut tipping fee is for what they are dumping at the plant.
I think that's all the questions I have. Kevin?
I guess just with that, the waste collection went up 24,000. Is that just a contractual with?
Yes, our contract with Paynes expired last year. We did a one-year extension, and we asked Paynes, they're really the only, and by the way, Paynes was taken over by USA, is it USA? Holland,
Yes.
USA Waste. They're probably the only game in the business, but Kirk and I and Lisa, we have a written proposal from them. It's about at the inflation rate, so we'll sit down and analyze this. The budget reflects that. It's in all likelihood, we will go to them because it doesn't make sense from a financial aspect to ask another vendor at a higher cost to come and pick up our waste. Paynes is also doing an exceptional job. And really, it's a new company, but they've used the same drivers, the same locations, and the same vehicles. So we have no doubt that the service will continue as it was under Paynes. Excellent.
So the proposal that you guys are looking at, analyzing now, how long a term is that? How long does it get?
I believe it's 3 years.
And they'll put in provisions for extensions, and it's based on SIP and.
So we're currently operating under a one-year extension, and you negotiated the first one, and now we're looking at 3 years.
Correct.
And a provider could come from Massachusetts, or do we have to have a provider from Connecticut?
I don't think they have to. Matter of fact, USA Hauling is based in Massachusetts.
Okay.
It's really, they protect their markets, and unfortunately, they stay out of each other's way quite well. Was that diplomatic?
Nice way to put it.
I have some friends in the business.
Yeah, I bet you do. All right.
You're right. But,
All right.
where you're right. Okay. We run an
Yeah.
extension.
Yeah, I'm good.
You good? Any other questions around the table?
Just, do we have a wash bay?
Yes,
We do.
we do.
Why was bringing?
You don't drive a car through it, though.
No, you got, is it outdoors or is it?
No, it's indoors.
Right.
And there's 2 wands set up with
Okay.
specific cleaning 55-gallon drums. And
Got
then
it.
there's a process to go through to do it.
All right, okay. Why I was just bringing it up, we had heard about the police cars.
We can't just let the
And
rain do it.
They have to travel to get them cleaned, and they've set up an arrangement here, but it's, you wash your own vehicle, right?
You wash your own.
It's your truck, you clean the truck after you're done.
Pretty much, that's true, pretty
Okay.
much.
Thank you. And does the school use it for the buses?
Nobody,
Okay,
we do.
just yours?
I mean, on occasion, the ambulances come in and request it, not often.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, yeah, senior vans are part of our fleet. But we'll do what we can to accommodate, but it's not like something we can just do.
right,
It's,
thank you.
Right, but even if, to follow your line of questioning, even if the school buses came in, it'd be the driver washing his own bus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably not.
and there's the soap and material costs.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong too, Kirk. The cost of the vehicles and the damage that the salt is doing to the vehicles, it behooves us to get the salt off of them quicker. The same is true with the police, but not to the degree it is with the larger vehicles. The police is more of a pride factor. They want to look good for the community. And also, we would have to negotiate that in their contract if there was ever an expectation to have the officers wash their cars.
No, I get it. It's like, yeah, you don't have an attendant there waiting to wash the vehicles.
We're not gonna make the officers wash their own vehicles. All right. All right, no other questions here? All right, that was our last budget section for tonight. Catherine?
I do want
Oh,
to
sorry.
answer your questions about the special pay. So in the UPSU contract, it has a language to have the vacation payout, and that's what I budgeted for.
Okay.
Just a percentage, it's an estimate, so it's not necessary. what we actually gonna pay. If the employee required it, we are obligated to pay that. That's why we put the money aside for that.
Great, thank you, Kimmy.
Is that, so is that,
Yeah.
so is that vacation payout just when they retire, or
Nope,
did they get a benefit
they-
that they can,
Yep,
They
if
don't-
they accumulate certain amount of vacation, they can select to be paid out.
instead of
for
taking a
a
day
week.
off?
Yes.
I got it. All right.
Before I leave, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
No, you're good. All right, so Captain, anybody join us on Zoom? We're in the public session. Bob, you have any questions or anything you want to, on the budgets we talked about tonight?
I just have a few questions for Kurt.
Why don't you come to the microphone, will you please?
I've been sick the last couple of days.
Oh. I'll switch seats with you.
How you doing, Kurt?
Good, thank you.
How many full-time mechanics do you have at the Public Works?
2.
Can't hear you. I don't know why.
Question was, how many full-time mechanics? Answer 2.
How long do you usually keep your trucks for?
We currently, we're on a 10-year schedule for the 4 internationals that we have left. That's the large trucks. And then our goal will be to get to 13 plus years.
The trucks that you're buying, are they, I noticed GMC and Chevy and a couple of Fords. I know GM makes a WT, it's called a work truck. I see High Sierra. I mean, why are we buying that?
They're 2,500, they're heavy duties. They're made to plow snow.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. But a High Sierra truck right now, a new one is like $85,000.
I don't pay that.
What do you pay?
I can't give you a specific dollar amount, but we purchase under the state of Connecticut or the capital region purchase.
Oh, that's that group there that,
And then there are other groups as well. So there may be a nationwide search, and then they'll send it out to everybody in GM. And GM will say, wow, we're gonna sell 100,000 trucks. This is what we can afford to buy it for. Trust me, I don't pay. The town does not pay the same price for a vehicle that you and I would go to a dealer and get the best deal on. Nowhere near.
where I came from, we used to take a tractor trailer for 10 million miles, a package car for 5 million miles. And of course, we always repaired it, and you could take the truck number, punch it into a computer anywhere in a terminal, and it gives you the breakdown of the costs. And it's very efficient and cost effective to keep the trucks, keep them
Yep,
going.
we have a work order system. We track our work orders. We know when it starts to become cost prohibitive, then it's time to put it on the chain to get it out, so we can get a good sale price for it as well. Because in the past, that's what we did. We put 2 trucks together to make one. That doesn't make any sense anymore. When we can keep trucks in good shape, keep them, like I said, we should be able to get 13 to 15 years going forward on them. We changed the tinsel strength on the frame, because what we used to do is get lamination with all the salt and contaminants.
Right.
We don't get that anymore. And to put a frame on a truck just doesn't make sense, and that's what was happening. So buying under these bid prices, they're good bid prices.
One of the last dump trucks you bought, I guess it's a big one. What was the price on that?
I can tell you. The truck we have a 10-wheeler currently ordered, that's plow, sander, and controls. That will be coming in around $335,000.
Wow.
Then we'll be trading in as well.
All right, I'm just looking to cut costs, that's all.
Oh, we do too.
We appreciate that.
We do too. But everything that we go through on the budget, I'm half kidding, I'll just tell you. I say I'm a Yankee, but I'm really a Red Sox fan. And I look out for this town, this department, and I want to save money, no matter what we're doing. So truly, we look at these things going forward, and we want to do.
All right, thank you for that. The other question I have is for Mark and Mark, I guess, or Mike. I came here the other day, and I watched the Board of Ed budget hearing, and I understand you did hire an SRO officer, correct?
No.
Are you going to?
They have proposed in their budget, adding an SRO officer, so it'll depend on whether their budget gets approved by the voters, I would imagine.
Oh,
They've
okay.
included it in their budget.
I thought that you guys were looking to hire him, which I think is a good deal, but the only reason why I question it is because when Ms. Burke put her budget up, she was doing away with the SRO program. It was put up on the screen there.
Yeah, you might want to, so their budget workshop is Wednesday,
Yes, it was.
so you might want to get that clarified, but I had
Well,
no
I
idea.
have it on my cell phone, I took a picture of it, but I just, the town manager was going for it, which I think is a good idea, but then again, the superintendent looks like she wants to dissolve the program.
So let me clarify
Well,
that.
yeah, and then Mike can go there. So there's some misunderstanding there, because from the what you will see in our budget, there's also a patrol officer in our budget.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me,
Yeah,
which would be
that's-
different.
That's a priority for us. When the school board started talking about considering an SRO officer and whether that would be good for the schools, we meet regularly with them. Mike and I meet with the superintendent and the board chair. We said, we're supportive of the idea, but if you're gonna do it, you have to build it into the school board budget so that you're prioritizing. So you have to decide how you're going to pay for it. So the last I heard was there's a patrol officer in our budget, there's an SRO officer somewhere in their budget, but they're 2 budget meetings behind us. So we're almost done with our budget workshops and they haven't started yet.
But you understand what I'm saying? She put up.
I do. Bob, yeah, I'm fairly or unfairly, I'm gonna say, you get over that Board of Ed meeting tomorrow night and you figure out what they're doing.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm not alone. People saw what I saw, and they're like,
What
whoa.
perhaps is happening is, I don't think the intent is to cut the SRO. I think the intent is to move it out of the Board of Education general fund budget to a different fund. It may appear to the public that it's being cut. It is simply being moved and funded.
Yeah, nobody explained that, so.
Yeah, I believe that's what's happening.
All right.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
All right, any other business? If not, we will adjourn and see almost everybody on Thursday. What?
No, I'm sorry, I was talking.
Mark, can you have me do a motion?
I did not hear a word you just say, translate. What'd you say?
She needs a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Bill.